Okay, so you know that old saying, you can't digest or use more than 30 grams or 20 grams or whatever number it is of protein at a time. And if you eat a meal containing more than that, so if you have a meal containing 60 grams of protein, half of it's going to be wasted because the body can't absorb or use that much in one go. So this study is looking at that. That's what they're trying to figure out. Well, what if you give way more protein? Does it actually get used and put towards muscle protein synthesis and muscle tissue? And so they got milk protein, so it's got both casein and whey protein in it. So casein is slower digested. So you wouldn't want to use whey in a study like this because it's super quick digested and it's not similar to what a meal is. When we have a meal, we eat meat or eggs most of the time with protein, and so it's going to be slower digesting. So you want something that's going to be slower and is going to be, more comparable to that. So this picture pretty much sums it up. So on the left, you've got prior assumption. That's what it was used to think would happen. So you can see in the green is the anabolism. So that's the amount of muscle protein synthesis or muscle building. And in the red line is oxidation. So that's protein being converted into glucose or ketones, right? So being, wasted or burnt, right? As energy, oxidized. And so as the protein goes up, the prior assumption was that the protein intake goes up to the right, the red line would increase and get steeper because we're getting more oxidation. So that's saying more of that protein is being converted into glucose or fatty acids and being wasted. And the green line flattens out. So it goes up initially, but as protein intake gets higher, it flattens out, saying that as you increase protein intake more, you get less and less anabolism. Going from 25 to 50 grams of protein in a meal doesn't give you double the amount of anabolism, right? And now this program, now we've got the new understanding on the right here. So now we're saying that, okay, the green line, anabolism goes up almost linearly. So as you increase protein, anabolism goes up, roughly the same amount. And you don't get this big increase in oxidation. So oxidation is like the wasting, I guess, of protein. So protein being converted, like I said, into glucose or fatty acids. And so even if you increase protein a lot, oxidation doesn't go up much. It stays steady. It goes up a bit, but it's just like a gradual slope. So whereas it used to think, used to go up like this, right? So now we know that having big meals of protein, it doesn't get wasted, doesn't get pissed away, and it does increase anabolism. And then you can see on the right, we've got the time point of it. They did a high dose. So in this study, they did a lower dose, which is 25 grams of protein, and then a high dose, which was 100 grams of protein, which is a lot of protein. 100 grams of protein is like eating a 500-gram steak, right? Or chicken breast. It's a shitload of protein. And so you can see that the anabolism stays high for quite a long time. Yeah, the arc of the curve stays high. A lower dose of protein, 25 grams, it's anabolic, and then it goes flat again, right? Which, because it gets digested quicker. So, yeah. So what did they actually do? They took radioactively labeled protein, milk protein, and gave the participants either zero placebo, 25 grams of milk protein, or 100 grams of milk protein. And they did blood draws and muscle biopsies regularly over 12 hours. So it was a pretty full on study. They had like, I don't know, 10 blood draws and like 4 muscle biopsies taken over 12 hours. So, and then they looked at all these different markers. And with radioactively labeled protein, they can see where it's going. And so, because there's these little markers on the amino acids, they can see when they do the muscle biopsy at 12 hours or 2 hours or 6 hours, whatever, they can actually see those amino acids that were in the milk have directly gone into that muscle. And so you can directly measure that where the protein's gone. It's actually, so you can see how much anabolism or muscle protein synthesis it's creating. And so here you can see, so the top line is this going to work here? Top line is a 100-gram dose of protein. You can see that, so we got, 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours along the bottom. And this is the amount of amino acids going into circulation. So through the blood draws they measured. And you can see it's just steadily increase over 12 hours. So it's not just a quick, you might think if you have a massive feed of protein, you might just think your blood levels of amino acids would go up and then down. So get digested and then goes down, 3 or 4 hours later. But as you can see here, it was just constant steady increase over the 12-hour period. So they ate it at like 8 a.m. and then at 8 p.m. there's still protein being released into the bloodstream, right? So this graph here is looking at how much of the ingested protein went into skeletal muscle. So the bottom line there is the 25-gram group. And so you can see there it sort of leveled up. Didn't go up much after the first 4 hours. So you got 4, 8, and 12 hours. Didn't go up much more after that. And they got about just under 5 grams of the 25 grams went to skeletal muscle. And then for the top line, this ended up being 13 grams, and this is for the 100 grams. So out of the 100 grams that was eaten, 13% or 13 grams went directly to skeletal muscle, and it still increased. Like, you might think after 4 hours of consuming it, not more of that is going to keep going into the muscle tissue and providing anabolism or protein synthesis, but it did increase, at 4, 8, and 12 hours, and they didn't measure after 12 hours. So if you did it maybe at 16 hours, it could have been even higher, but they stopped the study after 12 hours. So you can see it, 12 hours after it was eaten, this milk protein was still being contributed to the muscle tissue 12 hours later. So this is looking at how much protein balance versus protein intake. So obviously all the ones on the top right, they had 100 grams protein. The little dots in the middle there had 25 grams protein, and then the ones at 0 on the right on the vertical axis there had 0 grams of protein. And so obviously you can see that obviously all the participants that had 100 grams of protein obviously had a higher amount of protein synthesis than the ones who had 25 and 0. So this picture here is looking at oxidation. So this, you could say how much protein is being wasted, right? Like oxidized protein gets converted into calories or glucose or fatty acids. And you can see it's slightly higher. So on the far left with the white circles there, the people who ate 0 grams of protein. All the dots close, the gray dots, they had the 25 grams of protein. And then the people that had the 100 grams of protein are here. And you can see the level of oxidation is only a tiny bit higher. So it's saying that, going from 25 grams of protein in one meal to 100 grams of protein in one meal, there was not really much of an increase in protein that was wasted or protein that was, converted to glucose or fat. It was all used as protein, basically. Now this one I thought was interesting. So you can see you got the 4 categories there. On the left, you got protein synthesis. So you can see that the white box is 0 grams of protein, the gray box is 25, and the box on the right is 100 grams of protein. You can see they had a high degree of synthesis. Now what I thought was interesting was the breakdown one. So they had basically all the same level of muscle protein breakdown. And so now remember, the white box had no grams of protein. And so the protein being consumed in the meal didn't really affect muscle protein breakdown, so catabolism in the muscles. Which is interesting. Now, obviously, if this was over a longer time period, it might have, like if someone was fasted for 24 hours or more, well, then the muscle tissue is probably going to start to go down more. But over this 12-hour period it was measured, there was not really a difference in muscle protein breakdown between 0 grams, 25 grams, and eating 100 grams of protein, which is surprising. Oxidation was similar. So oxidation was a little bit higher in the highest protein group, and obviously the net balance. So that's the net amount of protein that was deposited into the body. And obviously it was highest in the 100 grams group there. So yeah, overall pretty interesting. Puts that myth to bed that you can only absorb or digest 20 or 30 grams of protein at a time. You can have a 500 gram steak, and that is going to be pretty similar to having, 2 250 gram steaks or 4 125 gram steaks as far as muscle protein synthesis is concerned. So you don't have to worry about it. You can, have larger meals and less number of meals, basically.